Welcome and namaste, everyone. How good it is to have you here with me today to start a new book, one of my absolute favorites, actually, by the title of The Invitation. It's a stunning piece, even if I do say so myself, but it brings me great pleasure to see what uncovers itself as this moves from page to page. I look forward to bringing it to you as an audiobook beginning today. As usual, I start with an introduction, but I'm only going to read part of this one and then move right into the beginning of chapter 1. Well, who would have thought that what began as a simple homage to Ralph Waldo Emerson, along with testimony of how transcendentalism could take us to the roots of our divinity and then beyond, could or would end up like this book, The Invitation. Certainly, I could not have anticipated this journey as it is unfolded. As I look back on it, the formulation of what you will find here is much like life, a limitless series of invitations or callings to meet what rings true to us at the core of our divinity. Of course, we always, at least in this ego-conscious form, have the right to either accept or deny each invitation to engage. Such engagement can seem scary at first, but once we fathom the depths and reach what guides us spiritually, that still, small voice heard inwardly, choice turns into simple obedience to the call. We are returned to our authentic being and henceforth express only the renderings of that voice. From that point on, we treat all life brings us as gifts, free from judgment as to good or bad, right or wrong. As we walk in such liberation, we do so with a joyful heart and a peace-filled mind. I'm going to part from the introduction now and read you what I had inserted in the inside fly cover of the book as a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I wanted to begin with. It goes like this: "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adorned by little statesmen, philosophers, and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradicts everything you said today. Ah, so you shall be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad, then, to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood." And I quote that from Emerson because many of us feel we're understood, not even seen, along the way. Don't worry about that. It's none of your business whether you're stood or understood. It's just one of those things we're called to do and called to be. Okay, then let's start with chapter 1, The Invitation. Penelope has just received an invitation in the mail. It's very unusual, strange even. It is strange and unusual because she doesn't even know the one who invited her. The person's initials offer no clue to her, and the event itself is so vague as to put her off at first. Here's the invitation. You are invited. 6 o'clock in the evening, Sunday, January 1st, 124 Precious Lane. In honor of those who celebrate life and who are interested in discovering the true value of the gift of love life is, you are invited to participate in some spellbinding theater, The Invitation. The cast of characters will be very familiar to you, yet to name them at this time would spoil the mystery of this gathering. We will begin with cocktails and hors d'oeuvres precisely at 6 o'clock, followed by the event. Dress: formal, suitable for dining with royalty. Please RSVP by December 25th. I look forward to meeting you then. Sincerely, R.W.E. Its vagueness is intriguing when Penelope lets this mystery work on her. After cautiously sitting on the invitation for a few days, she rereads it, this time paying attention not to the words but to what the inner meaning seems to be conveying. Suddenly, Penelope feels her heartbeat, thumping thunderously against the lining of her undergarment. Hearing it ring true to her, she decides that this just could be a rare treat, rather than yet another holiday disaster just waiting to happen. Being optimistic and looking for a holiday event beyond the usual, she gives in to her better judgment and responds in the affirmative. Now, on the given day, having been spared the usual hangover from the usual New Year's Eve celebrations, Penelope dons her favorite formal wear. As she looks in the mirror in order to make any last-minute adjustments, her intuition beckons her to add a touch of period paraphernalia to punctuate her favorite area in history. After scrambling to find just the right touch, she pauses to peer in the mirror for affirmation. To great surprise and delight, she is deeply touched by what she sees. A modern-day figure suddenly transformed into the most elegant character from that period of yesteryear, certainly fit to dine with royalty. A chill rushes up her spine and her heart softly warms, like burning embers in an open hearth. One could say that time has stood still, so raptly is her attention focused. Once drooping from the stress and strain imposed by the vast array of holiday parties, Penelope's shoulders suddenly pull back and she stands tall and elegant, realizing at the same time that her frame of mind is uplifted. I'm ready, she excitedly proclaims, and then proudly struts herself out the front door, settling into the horse-drawn carriage that awaits her. Whoa, a horse-drawn carriage. This says something special, she thinks. As Penelope approaches her host's elegant setting, she senses a start to a story about life that takes her completely by surprise. As she climbs the stairs to enter the front door of 124 Precious Lane, an array of hosts and hostesses dressed in various period costumes dating from the 13th through the early 20th century graciously greet her. Contrary to the unpretentious outside appearance, on the inside, 124 Precious Lane is massive, the foyer reaching some 40 feet to the softly lit chandeliers overhead. Curving staircases rise gracefully from both sides of the entry, adorned with lush holiday boughs punctuated by bright red candles, lighting the room with a soft, comforting glow. A string quartet softly plays Penelope's favorite Baroque music in the background. Spirited conversation sprinkles the air with excitement. Indeed, as she begins to relax, the setting offers promise of the rare treat she had hoped would be the case. In the start, Penelope is taken by surprise by a gentleman who looks like he might be approaching middle age, yet strong in demeanor and elegant in word. She is touched by his approach. He looks familiar, yet his name doesn't come readily to mind. Then, in his usual inimitable fashion, he reaches out and greets Penelope as though a long-time friend, warmly, with a hug that sends a feeling of safety through her bones. "Good evening, Penelope," he says with a glint in his eye. "I am your host, Ralph Waldo Emerson. My friends call me Waldo, so I hope you'll do the same. Please make yourself at home, for, as you will soon see, my home is your home." That's with an uppercase H on home, she can almost hear him say. His spiritual intention rings that true to her. Privately, she's so taken aback by what seems like trickery that she wants to bolt. Ralph Waldo Emerson? Instead, in but a nanosecond, Penelope steps beyond fear and decides to let this adventure unfold as it will. Something inside advises that clearly it's true speaking with absolute authority. "Thank you, Waldo," she responds in a somewhat shaken manner. Her kind host acts to put her at ease. "I know this might seem unusual to you. It has for some of the others as well. But tonight we are celebrating, in part at least, the suspension of time, in order for you to discover your true self, as well as about life in general. Bear with me then, and by all means, come in and join the rest. As Penelope gathers herself from the emotional shock of seemingly having just met Ralph Waldo Emerson, she enters the reception area with measured steps, not yet sure if she will stay the course. As she scans the gathering, she realizes that there are only a few who appear to be guests like her, and they are mingling with a special coterie to whom they have their focused attention. She becomes fully aware of those who command the presence and attention of the rest. She thinks somehow they must be Waldo's friends, for at one time or another they all nod in his direction, as if to indicate to others with whom they are speaking that this is so. She recognizes these historical giants, or are they just simple people like her, only masquerading as giants? Penelope quickly decides to engage them in conversation so she can discern for herself. As she approaches a cluster of four, Penelope is amazed to recognize her longtime friend, Cristo Sabes, the itinerant metaphysician from northwest Arkansas. Aha, she proclaims to herself. Now I'll be able to find just what's going on here for sure. Cristo will not deceive me. Deceit is not in his character. Hopefully, she reaches out with open arms to greet him. Chapter 2, Intrigue. Namaste, Cristo. How good to see you, Penelope begins cautiously, giving her trusted friend a warm hug that comforts both. It's good to see you too, responds Cristo with a warm embrace and welcoming smile. Namaste. It's been a few months since we last engaged truth together. I have a sense that tonight's affair will be little different. Yes, quite the same. Do you really think so? She asks. I'm not at all sure what to expect. Well, then anything will do if you're not expecting something in particular. The key is to expect nothing, right? Simply let light have its way with us is quite enough, isn't it? Oh, yes, that, I remember. That's what got me here, deciding to let life have its way with me. Penelope rejoins, expelling a deep breath to help her relax. Excuse me, everyone. Let me introduce my friend to you, says Cristo. This is Penelope Browning, a close friend and spiritual confidant who has led many to the threshold of their own truth. Penelope blushes at the effusive introduction and curtsies befitting her period costume. Penelope, Cristo continues, these two gentlemen are from what used to be called Persia. Meet Hafiz and Rumi, two of my very, very favorite Sufi poets. We've been just discussing the nature of life. Not a bad way to begin an evening, is it? Namaste, Penelope greets them, which brings warm smiles and disarming hugs, representing the level of trust from her new friends. Penelope is floored by her sudden recognition of these two characters. Knowing that they have long since died, she is momentarily thrown off guard. Cristo looks at her with an affirming smile that settles her some. Yet she has to question her sanity. Cristo, is this really? She begins, only to be interrupted by Cristo's stabilizing response. No, you're not imagining things, Penelope. Do you recall Waldo's words regarding the suspension of time? Well, yes, but no. There's no but to it, Penelope. In the safety of suspended time, all that is or ever has been just is right here before us. So you might as well get used to it and start enjoying it as soon as and as thoroughly as you can. Rumi and Hafiz nod affirmatively, at the same time smiling brightly in Penelope's direction. Dear Penelope, Rumi warmly addresses her first. It's such a delight to finally meet you. Earlier this evening, Cristo was speaking about your spiritual prowess. Now that I have met you, I can see with my own eyes, he says while pressing one hand against his heart, that what Cristo had told us is a great understatement of all you are. Don't let him get you with that flattery, Hafiz, says Penelope, teasing his compatriot. The next thing you know, he'll be trying to seduce you with some of his poetry. It takes one to know one, says Rumi. Be careful, Penelope. This clever one will tame you with his charm and wit, so keep a wary eye. Penelope laughs at the competitive spirit playfully expressed by her new acquaintances as she engages them. Well, then, I'll look forward to seeing who will end up with my hand by the end of the evening, she says, with a more comfortable demeanor than before, and with a returning twinkle in her eye. Unless, of course, Christo wishes to get into the act. After all, he has a considerable lead on you, she says playfully, smiling at Christo. Oh, not a problem at all, Hafiz responds in kind. Christo is a gentleman, understands that what must be, must be. I can tell he has no strings to attach to anything in this reality. Don't be too sure about that, rejoins Rumi. Hafiz tends to overstate to gain advantage, Penelope, so don't pay any attention to him. I think I'll be able to handle the situation, she responds. She gathers herself and focuses the conversation in another direction. But listen, I've interrupted your conversation, so please help me catch up. There's really nothing to catch up on, Christo implies. You already know all you need to about life. Well, maybe yes and maybe no, but let me be the judge of that. Besides, I have long admired the poetic sensibility of these two fine gentlemen, and would enjoy hearing about life from their own lips, she says with aplomb, now resting more comfortably and self-confident. Now look who's the flatterer, Hafiz says jokingly. Just look at her, will you? No, this is not flattery, Christo comes to Penelope's defense. This is the real deal speaking now, Hafiz. See, I told you he's not as unattached as he might be, Rumi says to Hafiz, making Penelope blush. Penelope is struck by the response and quickly decides to save Christo from himself. Oh, he's not attached. We're more like a brother-sister thing. He can be a little overprotective at times, yet he gives me plenty of room to roam. Christo smiles inwardly at the obvious act of kindness, and he acknowledges it with the affirmation of silent acquiescence. Well, now that this is all settled, by all means, let's get back to our earlier conversation. Just where were we, asked Hafiz, when we were so delightfully interrupted? You were waxing eloquently about life and God, answers Christo. Please continue. Well, I don't want to be the only one here telling all the secrets, filling up all the bowls at this party, taking all the laughs. I would like you to start putting things on the table that could also feed the soul the way I do. That way we can invite a hell of a lot more friends. Ha, exclaimed Rumi. Listen to this one, will you, as though he has all the wisdom to offer. No, that's not it at all, rejoins Hafiz. I'm just inviting each of you to bring your own wisdom to light. All right then, says Penelope, now more eager to jump into the fray. Let me quote from my newfound friend here. He is back, the one who is never absent, the water that has never left the stream, the essence of the musk of which we are the scent. Can the essence and the scent be separate? Does this not speak of the inseparability of truth and its effect, of the oneness to which we all belong? But of course, my dear one, Hafiz asserts, why all this talk of the beloved, music and dancing, and liquid ruby light we can lift in a cup? Because it is low tide, a very low tide in this age and around most hearts. We are exquisite coral reefs dying when exposed to strange elements. God is the wine ocean we crave, we miss, flowing in and out of our pores. Isn't this the real problem in our world today? Well, really, since the beginning of time, at least as this reality speaks of it, Christo inserts. We certainly are at low tide every time we give credence to anything but our divinity, any time we give power to outside authority rather than what rings true to us. Surely that is so in me, adds Penelope, especially when our world as we know it today is filled with such tension and fear. Our government, like most governments I'm afraid, seems to be based on fear, thus disabling our true sense of being so they can gain and maintain power and control. When we are so busy bathing ourselves in fear, we cannot see the forest for the trees. We lose our truth in the illusion of fear and separation. Ah, well said, Penelope, says Rumi. What you say is exactly the truth. The early breeze before the dawn is the keeper of the secrets. My advice is don't go back to sleep. It is time for prayer. It is time to ask for what you really need. No, don't go back to sleep. The door to the one who created the world is always open. Open the door. A novice has arrived, I like to say, because even as much energy as I invest in truth-seeking, I am a novice. And so I say to the Holy One, offer me a cup of wine and walk with me for a while. You don't mind long distances because of the way you lay your traps and plan how to break my heart. You fulfilled hundreds of my wishes. Let my heart still hungers for more. Your kindness warms and blesses everyone. Even the sun bows before you. Please, please let me be your slave and silently walk by your side. I find new meaning in every joy and sorrow. In that silence I will hear the voice of spirit, and freed from this world I will see another order, or the end is another beginning. You know, adds Hafiz, I never cease to be entertained by what we humans attribute to God. From my own perception of God, all I can say is that I have 1,000 brilliant lies for the question, how are you? I have 1,000 lies for the question, what is God? Notice, by the way, that I didn't ask who is God. That is a very important distinction that we must understand. As I have heard you two say time and again, who deals with roles we play, which in of themselves are nothing but illusions. What deals with the essence of what makes us one, and thus all the same. Well, back to my brief thought about God. Where was I? Oh, yes. If you think that the truth can be known by words, if you think that the sun and the ocean can pass through that tiny opening called the mouth, oh, someone should start laughing. Someone should start wildly laughing now. Hafiz concludes himself laughing raucously. The others join in with appreciation. This is so true, says Penelope. In our life's work together, Christo and I have stressed that it is not the words that come out of our mouths that speak truth, but rather their absolute meaning that strikes truth in our heart of hearts. This is our being and life all in one. This is our journey to Mecca, this metaphorical witness to the perfect heart. The sacred heart of Jesus was also such a witness, but most people have missed this meaning. What a brilliant point, Rumi agrees. And such brilliance can come only from being the essence we each are, and living from that as our reference, our base of truth that awaits loving activation. In more poetic phraseology, I would like to say it this way, especially if I'm dealing with an unbeliever. You think of yourself as a citizen of the universe. You think you belong to this world of dust and matter. Out of this dust we have created a personal image, and have forgotten about the essence of our true origin. This is the kind of prayer we need today, Christo quickly affirms. We have long since forgotten the power of real prayer, found only by listening to the truth life brings us moment by moment. Instead, we use all of our energy pursuing the illusions put before us by those who would seek to gain from our ignorance and spiritual timidity. Well, to me, suggests Penelope, life is all about remembrance. It isn't that we don't know truth. It's only that we forget to go to the truth as a single source that leads us to the highest ground. As long as I remember with truth and stay obedient or surrender to it, then my journey is laden with all the gifts of the kingdom. Indeed, I am bathed in the abundance of the one of which I am. Yes, I am that, the one, just as we all are. I no longer question that. My dear Christo, you are absolutely right about this delightful young woman. She is a saint in her own time, observes Rumi. Just listen to her. Then there can be no doubt about this, Penelope confirms Hafiz. So don't be embarrassed by such comments. Obviously, you live in truth, and are the personification of truth. Bravo! Oh, thank you, you too. Penelope responds with beads of perspiration on her brow from the discomfort she feels with all the attention focused on her at the moment. I do appreciate what you're saying, but let's return to the focus to things of a higher nature. That's the very point we're making, Penelope, Rumi reinforces. You, and all like you, are the higher nature. And you just said it yourself, that I am bathed in the abundance of the one which I am. That is not only the higher nature, but the only nature or essence of what each of us is. Oneness. One in being. My experience is that we've lost a sense of oneness in the erroneous configuration of separation, Christo asserts. Sometimes I actually get depressed at the thought of such shallowness all around us. Yes, Christo, Hafiz says, but letting yourself be driven by depression only adds to this unfortunate malaise. If I might encourage you some, actually by the same kind of meaning that you have imparted to others, it happens all the time in heaven, and someday it will begin to happen again on earth. That men and women who are married, and men who are lovers, and women who give to each other light, often will go down on their knees and will so tenderly, holding their lover's hand with tears in their eyes, will sincerely speak, saying, "My dear, how can I be more loving to you? How can I be more kind?" Now that is the power of truth personified through each of us, each in our own unique way. Once again, this speaks to me about how we have avoided seeing the truth by exercising all our energy on illusion. Penelope confesses wisely, now with growing self-confidence. Through domestication, we have come to believe that life is about material considerations and amassing financial and political fortunes. The real fortune, it seems to me, is the abundance we find in heaven. All those divine ideas and inspirations that come to us as our natural inheritance of the spirit we are. Such truths are innate treasures of the kingdom. In this way, then, isn't life all about accepting the invitation to join truth in its delivery? Christo rejoins the conversation. If we remember with truth as we hear it, we can understand that we are at once invited to join truth in its deliverance to the universe. This becomes our purpose and our way, all rolled into one. How brilliant your deduction is, Christo declares Rumi. At the same time, we must be careful to understand that we can either accept or decline the invitation. To decline is to postpone our deliverance, while to accept is to hasten our deliverance to truth exponentially. In this way, it's no different from accepting or declining our genial host's invitation to join him tonight. Had we declined, we would have missed this glorious opportunity to become even more enlightened by what we're contributing to one another. We have indeed validated our deliverance by participating in this unfolding of truth. I haven't thought about it that way, but I sure felt its resonance as you said it, Rumi agrees, Penelope. I seem to recall something else you said in that regard. She adds, pinching her brow in search of it. Well, actually, there's been much said by many in this regard, and yet we fail to pay attention. Sometimes we just have to hear truth said a certain way before it takes up residence with us. Rumi comes to her aid. For example, let me say it this way and see what meaning it has for you. Given the enchanting setting in which we find ourselves, this expression may have particular meaning as we begin a new incarnation together this evening. What a loss to be sober in the midst of drunks. Keep pouring the wine of love until all reason dissolves. Have you ever seen a thirsty man refuse water? Fall madly in love, my friend, for reason is icy cold in the circle of lovers. Lost in the fog of impressions, reason cannot see the signs of the invisible one. I agree with my dear friend Hafiz when he said something like this: finding faults is for those with tired minds. And then again, if you are enslaved by this world, remember Joseph, who never forgot who he was, become homeless like Jesus, who had no need for an earthly abode. If you want to become a seer, Do not be blinded by fear. You may lose all your veils, so be it. Be joyous and celebrate. I think this speaks to the light dear Penelope brought to us just minutes ago. This business about fear clouding the truth from us. Penelope brightens to the tie Rumi made to her earlier expression, so she responds in kind. Rumi, this is such a lovely way to speak of the contrast between reason and truth, expressed as love. In our gatherings with Christo, we have invested a great deal in this very thing. Oh, yes, we know, says Waldo as he enters a conversation, seemingly out of nowhere. All of us have been held spellbound by your investigation. You have? Asked Penelope, hesitantly, somewhat nonplussed by Waldo's comment. Oh, yes, of course, Waldo responds. If you give yourself the opportunity to see beyond the limitations humans place on themselves, you will, in fact, recall some of the very words you are now hearing from these dear friends re-entering your mind. They may have been heard in a slightly different form, but they define the same meaning nonetheless. Oh, my goodness, exclaims Penelope, after seeing the truth of Waldo's declaration in her mind's eye. Of course, now I see it all. Thank you for affirming the true nature of spiritual telepathic communication. I thought it applied only to the communication of unstated ideas between humans, but you've just stretched it to include other entities. Well, is there any real separation between us? Waldo asked Penelope. Or is it all imagined, that is, limited by fear of some kind? Of course, you are absolutely correct, answers Penelope. There is no separation in life. Only the human limitation we put on it keeps us from the total contact with one another, no matter what the form. Although I've been feeling a stronger and stronger sense of connection with the other world, so to speak, I had lost the handle on that connection lately. Thank you for returning me to it, so I can enjoy the fullness of exchange in the here and now, which is all there ever is. You have a full grasp on it now, Penelope, suggests Waldo. Is there anything anyone needs, he adds out of courtesy, or do I need to get out of your way? No need to leave, dear friend, assures Hafiz. Please stay for a while and join in our discussion. I think you'll find it very interesting and to your liking. Oh, I'm sure of that, Waldo returns, but I have more pots to stir, thank you. So if you'll excuse me, I'll be on my way. Waldo departs with a glowing smile adorning his face, leaving the rest fully present in his considerable wisdom. Well, I sure didn't expect that, Penelope says. The teacher shows up exactly when and as you need the truth of the matter, claims Christo. This gathering is beginning to make more sense to me now. Spiritual sense, that is, Penelope says with increasing clarity. But where were we? Oh, yes, Rumi had just told us about expressing truth as love. Actually, as I heard him, he said truth is love. Is that right, Rumi? You're right on target, my dear. Right on target, yet again. And well, she should be, declares Hafiz, for the subject tonight is love, and tomorrow night as well. As a matter of fact, I know no better topic for us to discuss until we all die. And in this context, let me affirm our present connection with Penelope in this way. As soon as you opened your mouth and I heard your soft sounds, I knew we would be friends. The first time, dear pilgrim, I heard you laugh, I knew it would not take me long to turn you back into God. Penelope is taken aback for a moment and then realizes the truth of Hafiz's proclamation. Oh, you mean that when you saw me for what I am, you turned me back into God instead of seeing me as a woman? Is that what you mean by this? Absolutely. You have it exactly right. We all are nothing but God, each expressed in our own uniqueness, but always, yes, always, as nothing but love. And when we can bring ourselves to this right-mindedness, then the world will return to the love it always has been. It's only now we see life that makes the truth life is, the loving way. Well, this turns us back once again to the idea of invitation, proclaims Rumi. While any of us can turn the other back into God in our eyes, it isn't always so. Sometimes we get ourselves tangled in the vines of the earthly vineyard, and we come to the truth as though it were separate from us. We lose the context of divinity as that we must use for seeing life. For example, these thoughts have crossed my mortal mind from time to time. I appreciate it if you'd straighten me out about them. Here goes. I'll give you anything to win your love, but if you say no, I will accept and walk away filled with the sweetness of your denial. I have come secretly to know your flame for my soul. I have come to steal from the king's treasure, but if I do not succeed, I will accept and walk away knowing where the gold is hidden. Play your tricks, pinch my hat if you like, but I will walk away with your golden belt. Tempted for so long to have a vision as you, I myself have turned into a vision. You have seized the fortress of my heart. Your love arrows split even the mountain, and how can my poor heart ever escape them? I don't even dare to mention your name and call you my moon, jealous that others may discover you. This poem is for the time when you held up the cup before me saying, drink now, because if you don't, I will pass the wine to someone else. There. What do you make of that, Rumi asked his colleagues. Wow. Sounds like a spiritual crisis of some sort, Christo offers. Such ideas have haunted me from time to time as well. Yet on another hand, I can see that this brings us back to the truth of spirit. It is an invitation to discern truth, but for various reasons, even though we may be fully aware of what it brings to us, we don't accept its beckoning to abide its fullness. And Penelope prepares to add, when we turn down the invitation, we are left only with the only thing we think we know, separation, and all the feelings of pain attributed to separation. What I can't abide, however, is the idea that God and we are separate, and if we don't accept God's invitation, that God will take it to someone else. I think that's all part of our separation syndrome, if I may put it that way. God's invitation is eternal and infinite in its wisdom and gifts. That's a very good way to put it, affirms Hafiz, and once again you've hit the nail on the head. At least from my point of view, Rumi also affirms with a nod of approval. Thanks for sharing your perception on such matters, Rumi says gracefully. As we all can attest, matter is all about perception, the glorious filaments of mind. It strikes me that one could feel very lonely when residing in illusion, Rumi continues. I have a friend who says to me all the time, actually he puts it in a question, aren't you ever lonely? Of course, my answer is that one shouldn't, if I may paraphrase my own words, surrender his loneliness so quickly. Let it cut deep. Let it ferment and season you as few human or even divine ingredients can. Something in my heart tonight made my eyes soft, my voice so tender, my need for God absolutely clear. Truth and lovely sentiment all in one, Penelope declares, and it reflects so peacefully, perfectly, how we get from the mortal configuration to truth. The path becomes that which shows itself as accepting the illusory signals as pointers to truth. In this way, we won't wallow in the feelings of separation and let them paralyze or cripple us. Rather, we use such feelings to head us in the direction of truth that awaits activation through us. Such wisdom in this young one, Happy says. Let me say it slightly different language, he continues, and that no one can keep us from carrying God wherever we go. No one can rob his name from our hearts as we try to relinquish our fears and at last stand victorious. We do not have to leave him in the mosque or church alone at night. We do not have to be jealous of tales and saints of glorious mass, those intoxicated souls who make out righteous love with a friend. We do not have to be envious of our spirit's ability, which can sometimes touch God in a dream. Our yearning eyes, our warm, needing bodies can all be drenched in contentment and light. No one anywhere can keep us from carrying the beloved wherever we go. No one can rob us of his precious name from the rhythm of my heart, steps, and breath. Oh, exclaims Christo, oh yes. When we acknowledge our oneness, we are never separated from the beloved. Once again, it's only when we reside in the mortal mind configurations of separation that we see ourselves needing to compete for God's love. It is in oneness that all works are glorified in God's name. In this regard, Rumi, I seem to recall that someone once asked you something like, when the servant of God performs an action, do the grace and good flow from the action, or are they gifts of God? Do you recall the answer, if indeed that was the question? Oh, yes, that was the question. And yes, again, I recall the answer. It is burned indelibly on my heart. It is the gift of God and his grace. Yet God, out of his tenderness, ascribes both to the servant, saying to him, both are yours. No one knows what astounding comfort is laid up for them in secret as a reward for doing love's work. This is so beautiful, Crystal responds with heartfelt plea. That answer reminds me of a communication I recall taking place between God and me during a particular phase of prayer in which I only listened rather than ask anything of God. On one occasion, I was admonished to listen for the truths of something I had desired in the depth of my heart, unbeknownst even to me at the time. Well, I listened and listened and listened throughout the day, and to my sorrow, nothing arrived, at least as I saw it. In a few days, without even raising the issue in prayer, or about prayer, these words spoke abundantly to me. I know you are disappointed by the lack of knowing in this regard, but how do you know what I put in place on the day, that very day you asked me? Needless to say, I was astonished by this communication, because I never even recalled the need for an answer, and yet was given one that provided me with the most perception of truth. That's exactly what we've been speaking about here, Krista, Rumi affirms. Your story exemplifies the truth as none other. It is good that you are listening for what rings true to you this way. Share stories if you must. By example, our stories are what inform and inspire others to do the same. You are doing your work in exemplary fashion, dear friend. Keep at it. Knowing the truth of the matter, Krista responds, I don't consider there to be any other choice. Once I find myself in truth, any alternative to truth ceases to exist for me. There are times when I don't hear truth, but rather rely on my own arrogant approach tied to ego consciousness. But at least I've come to the place where I can recognize the need to return to truth out of that awareness. Yours is a journey all of us are on, Hafiz says to Christo, and we ought to commend ourselves for doing the best we can under any circumstances. I have had to face this myself. I long for you so much, I have told God. I follow barefoot your frozen tracks that are high in the mountains that I know are years old. I long for you so much, I say. I've even begun to travel where I have never been before. Hafiz, I say to myself in these times, there is no one in this world who is not looking for God. Everyone is trudging along with as much dignity, courage, and style as they possibly can. Yes, this is a familiar conversation, one not unfamiliar to any of you, I'm sure. Oh, of that I'm certain, says Penelope, and Christo nods in affirmation. Begins Rumi as he sees Waldo heading this way. We've all spoken with such poetic presence, the single presence that speaks of God, to one to which we also witness. Permit me to say one last poetic offering before we head for the dinner table. When you plant a tree, every leaf that grows will tell you what you sow will bear fruit. So if you have any sense, my friend, don't plant anything but love. You show your worth by what you seek. Water flows to those who want purity. Wash your hands of all desires and come to the table of love. Rumi pauses for a moment, bating the breath of each, and then, do you want me to tell you a secret? The flowers attract the most beautiful lover with a sweet smile and scent. If you let God weave the verse in your poem, people will read it forever. My reason for sharing this with you is to give testimony to His truth for and as you, Penelope, and you too, Christo. You both, by your loving example, give testimony to the truth of the fruit that falls under the tree only of love. Greater truth than this is not known, adds Hafiz glowingly. Just as they are about to respond with immense gratitude for these loving affirmations, Waldo breaks into the conversation. I've been listening to you. I would agree wholeheartedly with your declaration about these two special guests of ours, he says to Rumi and Hafiz. Penelope and Christo have connected fully with their commitment to truth. They have realized so very well that the divinity each of us are, can't be taken out of the innate nature and put into a mere conversation or a church pew only in the so-called Sabbath. They have seen without difference that theirs is to teach others to forget personal history and come instead only from their divinity. They teach too that we are in service of God, and because we all are God, that we love others as we love ourselves. As such, we love our high self, our innate divinity. In doing so, we love also the high self at all. What greater testimony can we give to life and all in life? Yet these two do it. They are the poems people will read forever. Now, before they get all gushy over this, let's move on to dinner. I'm going to suggest that you bid one another adieu for now and sit with some of the other guests you've not yet had the opportunity to meet. Christo and Penelope, you will want to sit with one another at the same table so you can compare notes later on. Before Christo and Penelope can thank the conversational cocktail companions, they have sauntered off to another location. Yet there has been a parting of ways that has embraced all in a blanket of perfect love, and this will not be the last time. I wonder, Penelope begins to think to herself. Yes, me too, Christo says in return, surprising no one at all. Well, that's taken us beyond the usual entry point for a given day, but that's going to happen in reading this book. I'm not going to break down the chapters into convenient times, just for the sake of time. So know that this is going to vary from somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes each time we're together as we go through this wonderful book, The Invitation. You know, I like to close with just a quick comment that I see, a post somewhere. I'm going to close with this one for today, and we'll see you next week. I hope you will be well and happy. Here's the post. Whatever you did today, I hope it was worth it, because you just traded a day of your life for it. Yes, I think it's worth it. Namaste, my dear friends. Be well and happy. I love you.